This one, my friends, is near and dear to my heart. I saw this news this morning, and for many of you, it may not matter as much, but for me, it matters quite a bit. Donald Trump won my neighborhood in Chicago, and he's been increasing his support in a deep blue area. And when I saw this from the Chicago Sun-Times, man, it hit me like a baseball bat to the chest, but in a good way. Major urban areas have swung hard for Donald Trump. Miami-Dade is deep red now. Once a blue stronghold, a major urban center is now voting for Donald Trump. I went to Philadelphia and I saw Trump flags in downtown Philly. I mean, that's remarkable. Donald Trump supporters in a downtown urban center? Well, I want to show this to you guys. Trump bump in Chicago and Illinois gaining popularity each year on the ballot. And I want to tell you what it means. What I think it means. And I think it means that people in this country are sick and tired of Democrat failures. They're tired of the gaslighting, the media lies, and we are reshaping this landscape. Here's the story from the Chicago Sun-Times. In terms of percentage, Donald Trump bested every Republican running for president in Illinois since 1992, according to unofficial statewide returns. And this is data from yesterday. Take a look at this. The presidential vote for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois showed that Trump made gains in the deep blue city and state, with Tuesday making the best he's done in his 3 times on the ballot. Whether this trend will impact the city and state politics remain to be seen. In Chicago, Trump jumped to 22% in 2024 from 12 in 2016. The 41st ward on the far northwest side of the city is the only one where Trump won more than half the votes on Tuesday. In Illinois, Trump's statewide vote grew to 45.3, up from 38.7 in 2016. For now, Chicago and Illinois returns for Trump, the former future president, tell a story of a slowly growing GOP city and state vote. The state's 19 electoral votes, however, still went to Kamala Harris. What does this mean? When J.D. Vance takes the stage for president in 2028, Illinois has a chance to flip for the Republican Party. 45%. That's a lot down. You got to make a lot of gains. But if the Democratic Party does not moderate and reform, this implies a massive victory for Republicans is coming, because J.D. Vance is arguably better than Donald Trump in a lot of ways. Now, I know Trump's got that charisma and that X factor, but let's be real. J.D. Vance masterfully performed on that debate stage and on the Joe Rogan podcast. He comes off like a regular, hardworking guy who came from humble upbringings, went to Ivy League schools, served this nation, and gets it. And you know what? I respect it, because I think he reaches a lot of regular Americans, and he's not brash like Trump. So he can only improve. We'll see. I don't know who the Democrats have. Gavin Newsom, he's like Democrat Mitt Romney. Take a look at this. Trump's popularity in Illinois. In terms of percentage, Trump bested every Republican running since 92. Every Democrat has won Illinois since 92. With the highest vote getter in that stretch being Barack Obama. Of course, Obama lived in Chicago. He was from Hawaii, but he lived there. With 93% counted as of Wednesday afternoon, the tally was 53 for Harris and 45 for Trump. Take a look at this. So Obama did really, really well. Here's a map. 2024 compared to 2016 and 2020. I want to show you this. Maybe I can zoom in better. Are they going to give me the business if I zoom in too much? It's not really improving. Oh, I say control to zoom, huh? This, my friends, this right here, this is my neighborhood. This is it's where I grew up. And it's red. That's kind of wild. Here's where it was in 2016. Yeah, look at that. A little red. Now, outside this line is suburbs. So it's I'm trying to figure out exactly where the breakdown is, because we have a suburb called Stickney. And the first house I was in, half of the street was Chicago and half was Stickney. So if you cross, they actually had a divider in the middle of the street, and the city wouldn't pave the other side. So the half of the street was kind of wild. They don't do that anymore. But Stickney wasn't Chicago, it was a suburb, and we lived across the street from a suburb. It's kind of weird. Because if you walked further west, you couldn't tell that you weren't in Chicago. I don't know. Maybe that's what, no, this is just not reported. I wonder where that line is. It's like, is it over here? No, that doesn't make sense. I don't know where the line is. It might be over here somewhere. So in this area, these are where my friends are, where we went to school. I believe this is probably Archer Avenue dividing this line, not reported. And in 2016, it was deep blue. You can see that there is some red in 2016 right here, and there's a lot that's unreported, so maybe it was, but you can see these areas were Democrat. If you're wondering why I think the way I think and feel the way I feel and would seek the way I seek, well, I think this nails it. In my neighborhood, it was largely, there were a lot of migrants, Eastern European, white working class. There were Latinos in one area. It's very racially segregated. And look at my worldview. This is the neighborhood where I grew up is now Trump supporting. It's the same as me, isn't it? Look at this neighborhood and think about where I was. In 2016, yeah, I'm fairly moderate. I'm not super far left. And I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for Clinton. In 2020, look at this. Large portions now reporting that they're starting to shift for Donald Trump, but still, my neighborhood's largely Democrat. In 2020, I finally decided I would be voting for Donald Trump. First time I voted for a Republican. And then you have 2024. This entire block has now shifted to Donald Trump. And where am I? For Donald Trump. Now, some have said it was you, Tim. And the idea is the people in my neighborhood who know me watch the show and have watched my show for a long time because they know me. And they're like, oh, I'll watch Tim's show. How about that, right? And then they hear me telling the truth. Here's the news as it's reported. Sometimes I get things wrong. So what happens? The people I know watch the show, tell their friends and family, share the show. And so, surprise, surprise, the place where I grew up is influenced by me and I by them. I actually think that's not the reality. I'm not, I know that, you know, some of the homies back home, they hit me up periodically and they're like, we love your show, bro. Congratulations and all that stuff. I think the reality is that I am a product of this neighborhood and I'm exactly what this neighborhood is. Regular working class, low income people living in a city tired of Democrat failures. This whole time, I've been saying I grew up in a city with 100 years of Democrat rule, and we're tired of it. There was never an alternative. The city still largely votes Democrat, but it's time for a change. I think we're starting to see it now. So good. We need it. And this is my neighborhood reflecting exactly how I feel in a very similar way. I mean, look at this. Some of these precincts are only 51%, 58%. That's big. 63. Wow, the further west you go out of the city, the more and more it's shifting. Some of these are barely Harris. But think about my sensibilities. I'm still relatively liberal in a lot of my ideas, fairly moderate, but I'm voting for Donald Trump because I recognize there is a problem. There is a problem in this country, and the Democratic Party has lost its mind. Interestingly, it's not just my neighborhood, but I often do mention that Chicago is our biggest viewership. For the people who watch Timcast and Timcast IRL, our largest percentage of audience comes from the Chicagoland area. It's small, because it's largely decentralized across the country, and some in Canada and the UK. But Chicago, of course, and I think it's because people in Chicago have similar views to me. Although I do find it fascinating when people tell me that, they're like, actually, a lot of people in San Francisco listen to Timcast as well. But take a look at this in 2016. These neighborhoods down here are largely for Trump. And that's funny. I wonder what area that is. I'm not entirely sure. But this is Garfield Ridge, which is the southwest side. And this is further south. I'm not familiar. They're now massively for Donald Trump. You take a look at 2020 from 2016, and look at this. You can see that this is O'Hare. The O'Hare area turns red in 2020, and look where it is now. Even west of downtown. It's absolutely fascinating. There's two things I want to say on this. The first is it's near and dear to my heart because I grew up in this area. But I also want to add, it's not just my experience. Take a look at Miami. Take a look at many of these cities. Take a look at the New York Times map. The shift to the Republican Party has been massive under Donald Trump. He is a moderate populist with a popular mandate. The times, they are changing. We are not tolerating failure, psychotic behaviors, and gaslighting anymore. The Democratic Party tried to install someone who was not elected, and we rejected them. But there's still a long way to go. It worries me that still 68 million people voted for Kamala Harris. I mean, sure, there's a missing 11 million or so votes. It's 13 right now, but I think her numbers will probably improve by a couple million. She may end up with 70. I think we may be looking at a 10 million vote discrepancy. But everyone's wondering what happened to these voters. I'll tell you, they're not interested anymore. I'm going to wrap it up there, though, my friend. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member at timcast.com. Buy Cast Brew coffee. It's our coffee. It's delicious. Stand your grounds. Become a member at timcast.com. Join the Discord server. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and we'll see you all in the next segment.